Greetings, brothers and sisters. I'm Professor Spira, and we are going to continue our discussion of fasting. I'll be reading some excerpts from Professor Arnold Ehret's Mucusless Diet Healing System, annotated, revised, and edited by Professor Spira. But these same excerpts can also be found in Rational Fasting for Physical, Mental, and Spiritual Rejuvenation. I'm on Lesson 20, Fasting Part 3, Important Rules to be Carefully Studied and Memorized. What can be said in general and what I teach is new and different from the average fasting experts and is as follows. The first meal and the menus for a few days after a fast must be of a laxative effect and not of nourishing value as mostly all others think. The sooner the first meal passes through the body, the more efficiently it carries out the loosened mucus and poisons of the intestines and the stomach. If no good stool is experienced after 2 or 3 hours, help with natural laxatives and enemas. Whenever I fasted, I always experienced a good bowel movement at least 1 hour after eating and at once felt fine. After breaking a long fast, I spent more time on the toilet than in bed the following night, and that is as it should be. So essentially, we're still talking about breaking the fast, and it's kind of focus on the breaking process. The first meal should be of laxative effect. You want the meal to pass through your body, as soon as possible, and if it doesn't go through, then you can either eat some more. Say you break your fast with fruit, if that's where you're at. Then you have another fruit meal. And then if you still don't have a bowel movement, now we're talking about enemas, that kind of thing. But we'll get a little bit ahead of ourselves. We'll get into that here in a second. While sojourning in Italy many years ago, I drank about 2 quarts of fresh grape juice after a fast. At once, I experienced a watery diarrhea set in foaming mucus. Almost immediately after, I experienced a feeling of such unusual strength, and I easily performed the knee bending and arm stretching exercise 352 times. This removal so thoroughly of obstructions taking place after a fast of a few days increased P and vitality at once, and P means power. You will have to experience a similar sensation to believe me, and then you will agree with my formula vitality equals power minus obstruction. And you will realize the absurdity of making up scientific, nourishing menus for health and efficiency. So again, this is something, Ehret keeps coming back to this. You can, take this how you will. I mean, you can, when he says that you realize the absurdity of making up scientific, nourishing menus for health and efficiency, he is essentially critiquing or criticizing the fundamental notion of nutrition, or the concept of mathematically aligning and all of these different nutrients and vitamins and all this stuff and calories and, just taking all of that into effect and expecting that that's going to make health. I don't get that out of Ehret. Ehret repeatedly brings that up. And so I know that there's a bit of a controversy right now in some folks that are that look at that are kind of taking another look at the nutrition things, like, well, maybe Ehret didn't necessarily mean exactly, maybe we're interpreting that wrong. Maybe, but I don't know. It's clear to me. Now, whether you agree with Ehret or not, or you agree with my interpretation of it, I don't know. It's fairly, you can read it and decide what you want. To me, it's fairly clear. The emphasis is less on this idea, like he said, it's not about trying to eat a bunch of nourishing food when you break the fast, like a lot of fasting experts to this day. It's like, okay, well now that you fasted, you have to replenish and revitalize all of these things that you just eliminated. Eric doesn't go with that type of mindset. Now, if you think he does, and you can, reread this and explain of what he says, that would, where you would think that. But as far as I can tell, that is, that's not the case. He's saying it's absurdity of making up scientific nourishing menus for health and efficiency. So Eric has essentially a theory about human physiology and diet and healing that's based primarily on principles of elimination. And so the diet is a diet of elimination. The things that you choose and the reason that you choose to eat them tends to be based on elimination principles. How well does something eliminate? There's more to it than that, but I feel like that's a pretty solid is a pretty solid message that continues to come up throughout the Mucusless Diet Healing System. The longer fast, the more efficiently the bowels perform after it is over, or it should. The best laxative foods after a fast are fresh, sweet fruits. The best of all are cherries and grapes. Soaked or stewed prunes are good too. These fruits must not be used after a meat eater's first fast, but only for people who have lived for a certain time on mucusless, or at least mucus-poor foods, the transition diet. So that gets again back to that, if you don't really want to be breaking fast, or you shouldn't be breaking fast with dried fruit. If you're going to break your fast with fruit, then break it with some whole juicy, ripe, juicy fruit. I wouldn't break it with a banana. I would stick with the juicy fruit. Then after that, then you can get into the soaked and stewed prunes and the dried fruits and that kind of stuff. And I still wouldn't necessarily go in the direction of dates, as they're not necessarily real laxative kind of thing. And that's my thing, is dates they're good food to use, in your transition diet and your daily sort of, when you're not fasting or you're not trying to detox and that kind of thing. It's a real nice transitional item that can be used for various purposes, but detoxing and cleansing is not really where the date shines. And so I wouldn't necessarily use dates in that capacity anywhere really near fasting. And I'm not a big fan of like the smoothies where some people get into like putting the dates in. And if you're doing it, you might be having a smoothie right now with dates. Now, I'm not saying it's it's fine, but I'm just you already know I'm not a smoothie king. I'm not against smoothies, like the use of smoothies. I have smoothies maybe 4 times a year. I'll make a smoothie and I used to do a little more than that, but I just find that smoothies you run into the same problem with smoothies that Eric highlights is the problem with soup, where you're mixing sort of somewhat solid food, partially cooked kind of food with, and I know smoothie, it's not cooked, but it's processed. And so you have this sort of liquid mush, and that's essentially what your body would do with it if you just ate the item. So you kind of did what your body would do, and it just makes elimination can become a little complicated. I would rather see somebody eat the whole fruit or vegetable, and then if you're going to juice, then they've gotten all the cellulose out of it, so you can actually that's a little different situation at that point. Anyway, we're talking about fasting here. Sorry, getting off into that. In the average case, it is advisable to break the fast with raw and cooked starchless vegetables. Stewed spinach has an especially good effect. Yeah, I've never really been a big fan of stewed spinach. Brother Air, he likes the stewed spinach kind of thing, where it's not stewed for very long. You hit it with just a little bit of steam, and it'll kind of kind of cook it up a little bit. But so this is an average case of, especially if you're getting started. So you basically are you're either gonna break your fast with a fruit meal, or you're gonna break it with a vegetable meal. In a raw, well, you can say raw vegetable meal, because it could be. I would prefer to see a raw vegetable meal, just like raw combination salad or something. But if you had some kind of steamed vegetable or cooked vegetable, it's acceptable depending on where you're at. It depends on where you are in your transition and stuff. So that's why this stuff gets so complicated and unique to each person, because there's so many different variations of possibilities. And some people, that's something they don't like about the Mucusless diet. That's why they can't really deal with it, because there are too many options for them. They want something specific, like, well, wait a minute, I want the exact specific rules, and this, when done effectively, is not like that. It's based on you and your physiology. 7, the first meal foods do not cause any unpleasantness. If the first meal foods do not cause any unpleasantness, you may eat as much as you can. Eating only a small quantity of food for the first 2 or 3 days without experiencing a bowel movement owing to small amount of food taken, another wrong advice given by experts, is dangerous. So this is something that I've been highlighting more, is when you break a fast, don't break it with like a couple bites of something, or 1 or 2 grapes or something. That's not breaking your fast. You want to eat enough, have it be enough so that it goes through your system and generates a bowel movement. And so that's a problem that I just noticed some people run into, where they want to break a fast and with just a little tiny bit of something. It's like, no, eat more. We're saying eat more food when you breaking your fast. Eat more of the fruit, or eat more of the salad and vegetables, or whatever it is. I'm not saying stuff yourself, force yourself to eat, like overeat or anything, but you want to eat more, not because you're trying to add calories or something like that, because you want to generate an elimination. You want to get a good bowel movement rolling. And that's, like you said, for first 2 or 3 days after a fast, you eat a considerable amount of fruit and vegetables, depending on, your physiology and what's going on. Number 8, if you are in the proper conditions so that you can start eating with fruits, and you have no bowel movement after about an hour, then eat more, or eat a vegetable meal as suggested above. Eat until you bring out the waste accumulated during the fast with your stool after eating the first meal. So that's sort of what I was referring to a little bit earlier, where I was saying, if you break your fast and you don't have a bowel movement, then a lot of people get scared. They'll get kind of like, okay, I broke my fast, but I haven't had a bowel movement yet. What should I do? Should I do an enema? Should I don't know what's happening. It's like, just relax. Have another meal and eat more. Have a mucus-free meal. So have either a bigger fruit meal, vegetable meal, whatever it is, but feel empowered to have another meal and to make sure that you eat enough. And the idea is to eat enough so that it creates a bowel movement. Now, if you go through the second meal, and a couple hours later you still haven't had a bowel movement, then I would do an enema, personally. So those are some good principles. We will continue in the next video, rules during the fast. So that was talking a little bit more about breaking the fast, and then next we will talk about what to do during the fast. So I thank you so much for plugging in. I love all of you, and until next time, peace, love, and breath.